Okay, we will get started and hopefully we can troubleshoot some of that audio in the background. Sorry about that, everybody. Tatsmewi, good morning. Welcome to our first webinar of the year, Journey to Success, Navigating Indigenous Tourism Excellence Through Self-Assessment. My name is Sierra Green. I'm the Visitor Outreach Manager for AIANTA, and this webinar is something I'm really excited.
Sarah, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Sarah.
Oh, you guys should have told me like 2 sentences ago. Okay, let's take that again. Hopefully you guys were lip reading. Tatsmewi, good morning. This is our first webinar of the year for AIANTA, Journey to Success, Navigating Indigenous Tourism Excellence Through Self-Assessment. And with this webinar, we have 2 great speakers who I'll introduce in a moment. But my name is Sierra Green. I'm the Visitor Outreach Manager for AIANTA. And through the Visitor Outreach Program, we strive to bring all of our members up to export readiness to work within the international marketplace. All of you as members and participants in this webinar have access to our promotion efforts into getting you front and center in the international marketplace and working with international tour operators to get international guests into your destinations and experiences. Oh, next slide, Sherry.
Sierra, I can't advance it.
Okay.
Maybe I have to have remote control. Can you click it?
I sure can try. So to get started, and before we get over to our speakers, the first thing we want to ask is for you to really think about how market ready are you? And this is pulled from the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada. And we're working on getting something similar for our members from American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian perspective. But in the meantime, we really like to adapt some of their resources for our utilization. So some of you may be startups, some of you may be already doing business with receptive tour operators and everywhere in between. And so this first poll I'll launch here in a minute, oops, goes over your market readiness. And so you can see here the poll and then also the description. So business ready means that you're, it's a new startup, maybe you're an entrepreneur and others just entering the market to get recognized for meeting good business practices. You tend to focus on the local markets. That means you're business ready. Visitor ready is for tourism businesses that are seeking to attract visitors beyond your local markets. You may be expanding and increasing your capacity, serving larger groups, or extending your operational season. Generally, these businesses are mature, having operated for a minimum of 2 to 3 years, and have well-established operational policies and procedures that enable you to grow and manage more risk. And then export ready businesses are focused on the international visitor markets. And you've added capacity to manage specialized travel trade services for visitors from a broad range of culturally diverse markets. So you're serving beyond just domestic. And your business is part of the larger travel trade ecosystem, which we've done a couple webinars on previously. We also have the travel trade manual created by AIANTA that you can reference to go through and see what are we talking about with this larger travel trade ecosystem. To be successful, most rely on business partnerships or relationships with tour operators, destination marketing organizations, and other distribution channels. So it looks like a good number of polls have come in. Some are business ready, almost visitor ready, good. visitor ready, and almost export ready. So it's really good. This is a good exercise for everybody to start thinking about, where are we in this spectrum of business ready to export ready? And this whole webinar really is based upon your understanding and your ability to reflect on your business, identify your strengths, identify areas of growth, and identify your path forward. Okay, good. So I'm just going to pop this up so you guys can all see the results there. We have a nice spread of folks engaging in different aspects of the spectrum. And here at AIANTA, our goal is to help you get from business ready to export ready, and anywhere on the spectrum that you want to get. Maybe not everybody wants an influx of international visitors, and that's fine. That's your choice. And we really want to respect that as sovereign nations and sovereign communities, sovereign businesses, and recognize that there is that opportunity there, and that we have the ability and capacity at AIANTA to help you reach whichever level you are interested in reaching. Okay. I'm going to try and move the slide. I'm not sure. There we go. Like I had mentioned, this webinar specifically is going over aspects, on how to share. I think you're clicking at the same time I am. All right. So this webinar, like I had mentioned, we pulled things from the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and they have a really great self-assessment guide. It goes over how to use the guide, and it's, I don't know, 20-some, 30 pages of different things that you can think about for your business. And once you fill it out, it kind of determines which readiness you are, if you're business ready, market ready, or export ready. Similarly, in our travel trade manual, we have a checklist as well that you can go through and say, here's the things that I have, here's the things maybe that I need to focus on, or here's the things that, you know, isn't really relevant to our business. Maybe that's more targeted towards accommodations, or maybe that's more targeted towards restaurants, and we're strictly a tourism company. So every bit of information, you know, it's not to say these are the absolute standards that must be met for your business. It's more of guidelines for you to reflect on and say, is this relevant to my business? And if it is, how am I meeting this standard? So none of this in here is a requirement to be anything for AIANTA's sake, but in the general scheme of travel trade, it's good guidelines for you to look at. So without further ado, I do want to introduce our two speakers. We may still be fidgeting around with some audio, which will be fine. If it doesn't work, we'll get through it. But first, I'll hand it over to Liz to introduce herself. And Liz, if you also want to just share, you know, what's the importance of having this reflective type of activity for tourism businesses from a media standpoint.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. From the East Coast over here, I'm in Florida. Thank you, Sierra and AIANTA, for welcoming me to the panel. In short, my name is Liz Slobodian, and I'm an accredited PR professional. I come from a background of public relations, media relations, corporate communications, and strategic communications. So my career has been spent in the communications space. I've worked for both public and private companies. I've worked in nonprofit corporations and PR and public affairs agency settings. I'm excited to be on the panel today. I originally worked for AIANTA 10 years ago, almost 11, if I can believe that myself. And I worked with the team to really bring AIANTA social media and PR efforts to the forefront. So coming back 10 years later has been very exciting. I'm now an extended piece of the AIANTA team, and I'm the PR and marketing consultant. So I work closely with Sierra. We're actually working on a national media opportunity right now, which is where all of this comes into play. And so looking at the poll that I just saw, a lot of you are visitor ready. So I'm excited to talk through some of those opportunities. As I'm talking to you today, I'm looking at everything through the lens of earned media. So think of the USA Today, which AIANTA was just featured in last weekend. We've been featured in BBC Travel recently, Travel Weekly, and we have a couple other national opportunities on the horizon. Really, we're in the middle of it right now. And so this is a great opportunity to really take a look at the things that you have in place, and especially those folks who are visitor ready, as you say, because you truly get one chance to make a first impression on some of these travelers and media. And so I think that AIANTA has put together a really great curriculum, not just today, but in general for all of the programs that they have available. And I hope that you all take advantage of them. And thank you for having me again, Sierra.
Thank you, Liz. And Ilaria, we have no audio? No? Okay. If you want to try and maybe type some things in the chat, that might be helpful. That may be the best option for us right now. While Ilaria types rapidly, I'll just share a little bit about my engagement with Ilaria. And let me just pull up here something. I will read some of Ilaria's bio while she types in. I've been with AIANTA for the last year and a half, and I've had the opportunity to build a relationship with Ilaria as an international tour operator from Italy. And so she works with Conrad Travel. She has a master's degree in American history, specializes in Native American history and culture. She's fluent in English, German, French, and Spanish. Italian is her first language, which she didn't list there, but I can attest to. She's been immersed in the tourism industry since 2003. Her passion for nature, culture, and music fuels her role at Conrad Travel, where she focuses on developing cultural and historical itineraries, committed to promoting Native cultures. She intricately weaves historical events and details into these itineraries. Ilaria strives to provide travelers with unique, enriching experiences that deepen their understanding of the destinations, fostering a profound connection to the cultural tapestry of each place. So I can attest and cannot emphasize enough Ilaria's passion for promoting our native destinations. And it is something that we are really grateful to have a relationship with Ilaria and continue to help find ways to bring Italian visitors and other visitors from other countries to our destinations through our relationship with her. And her unique perspective throughout this webinar will be helpful in giving you some insights into what some of the international industry is looking for when they come to visit our destinations and experiences. And in the chat, you can see Ilaria's message there. Ilaria, when you type in, if you just want to make sure it's to everybody. And I'm trying to advance the slide here. We'll see. Okay. And for all those attendees, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You can also provide your website or any of your social medias. I think that would be helpful for our speakers to go in and check out meanwhile, while we work through the slides. So this first slide just gives you an example of what it is that I'm talking about with the self-assessment. So we created a survey, basically an evaluation form, front and back, one page, front and back, very simple, but a lot of information can come out of this when you start to look at your own destination or experience. So with this evaluation form, this is the only like screenshot of it I'll show you. The rest of it will really break down into different aspects and go over each of the aspects more intently. But for this first one, you know, really identifying which category does your destination or experience fall into. And so you can reflect on this. Do we offer tours? Does it have cultural authenticity, storytelling? Is it cultural storytelling like legends from a long time ago? or is it personal storytelling of your firsthand experience and connection to the place? Is there opportunities for photography? You have artisans on site that are showing and demonstrating arts and culture. Agritourism, which we have Kelly Hepler with AIANTA, who is our agritourism contact, who is great in offering suggestions on how to amplify agritourism at your destination or experience. Night photography, night storytelling, those are two of my favorite things and that are really taking off in the industry right now, especially with, we can all probably relate to the beautiful things we've seen on Instagram, and a lot of people are pursuing that. But when you pair that with night storytelling, icing on the cake, a transformative life experience that people will forever remember and continue to tell their friends about, and really connects them to the place and the culture. And that goes as well with native cuisine, which is probably one of my favorite things to do when I travel, is to have some of the native foods from the destination. So some of those are the categories to think about. Of course, there's a much longer list that includes recreation, outdoor recreation, high intensity recreation, and so on and so forth. But this is kind of the condensed list that we pulled together for this evaluation specifically. The next two items you'll see, it says Indigenous tourism and Indigenous cultural tourism. And so it's kind of important for us, especially at AIANTA, to be able to identify who's offering Indigenous tourism. So are you a company that's offering a tour maybe that doesn't necessarily amplify the cultural experience? So it's really a native-owned company or an Indigenous-owned company who may be doing all sorts of things. So Indigenous tourism is defined as a tourism business, majority owned, operated, and or controlled by Indigenous, which demonstrates a connection and responsibility to the local community and traditional territory where the operation is based. The next one says Indigenous cultural tourism, and this one really is much different. So it not only meets the Indigenous tourism criteria above, which I just read, but in addition, a significant portion of the experience incorporates a distinct Indigenous culture in the manner that is appropriate, respectful, and true. Authenticity lies in the active involvement of Indigenous people in the development and delivery of the experience. So that authenticity and incorporating Indigenous culture is really a big part of this one. And so I am going to see if I can find my controls here. And try to launch a poll. So for those who are on, let's see where we're at with looking at Indigenous tourism or Indigenous cultural tourism. And just based on those kind of simplified definitions, which one do you identify with the most? Give everybody a minute to answer. And thank you guys for actively participating in the webinar. This truly is your moment to reflect on what you're offering. And some, this may not be relevant to, like I see somebody from a state DMO on here, and maybe it's not relevant for you to answer this question because you're serving a larger population, which is fine. Again, these are just recommendations, some guidelines for everybody to think about and reflect. Okay, good. It looks like we have everybody in, and those who did respond said that they are offering Indigenous cultural tourism, which is fantastic to hear. You know, I think it's an opportunity for us all to share and represent who we are and where we come from. And as Liz had mentioned, you know, this may be the only opportunity for us to have an impression. Liz, did you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think if I zoom out a little bit for everybody, a lot of folks don't really understand media relations and PR specifically and how it can differ from marketing. So I think if I start there for a second. So from an earned media perspective, and Sarah and I are working on these national media opportunities. You've seen AIANTA CEO Sherry Rupert's name and headlines and quotes across the country and internationally as well. That is earned storytelling. And so There's no advertising dollars or marketing dollars put behind that to secure that story. It's truly good old-fashioned storytelling. And so looking at this evaluation form that Sierra put together, storytelling is listed a few times in here, and that's truly what it boils down to. I think listening to media and interacting with them on a daily basis for AIANTA and for other clients as well, especially in the hospitality, tourism, travel, food, beverage space, which is where I focus my time and energy for my clients. There's a huge hunger right now for educational experiences. And in talking with a lot of media across the country, they are looking for those authentic storytelling experiences and truly, you know, having that captivating opportunity to either welcome a journalist to your particular business, share the many things that make your experience unique and different than those around you, or you know, just in general, there's so many different facets to what makes cultural heritage tourism so unique. But people are really interested in different types of opportunities now, especially as folks are, yes, traveling international, but staying and really trying to see what's inside the United States in terms of travel and tourism offerings. And so media are really interested in me, helping them educate their readers on these unique opportunities and experiences, but also how to appropriately approach and travel to these destinations. So one of the things that we launched in November, this past November, timely with a National Heritage Month for American Indian Heritage Month in the US, was a list of 15 cultural protocols to know before you visit Native homelands in the US. And so it was really successful with a lot of national media who were interested in sharing that as they start sharing some of these different destinations across our Native nations and communities with their readers. So I think looking at this, I hope it's not overwhelming for a lot of folks to look at the eval form and go through what we're talking about today. But if you were to zoom out, the biggest takeaway I would say from today is make your experience authentically you, and really try to capture that in your storytelling and interactions with every visitor that comes through, any media opportunities you get, and of course, through your marketing efforts.
Great, thank you, Liz. And that, yes, definitely zooms us out back to the bigger picture of from a media perspective, but also just from a visitor perspective in general. If you give me 1 second, I am going to pull up some comments from Ilaria that I can add to the discussion. Okay. If you all have hosted webinars, you know how it is to DJ multiple screens at the same time. So bear with me as I hop screens. And my eyes are shifting all over the place. You're getting it pulled up here. Yeah, I don't want to miss out on the comments from Ilaria because her input really is valuable to all of us, because as who we are, whether it be we want to identify as Americans, whether we want to be from rural locations, whether it be from Native communities, whether it be from an entrepreneur, small business, to all the different things that we work from, our different perspectives. It's really valuable to be able to hear the perspective of somebody from outside the country who is bringing folks into our destinations and experiences. So let me just speak here. Ilaria had shared on this one, it's of the utmost importance for the visitor and tour operator to evaluate his or her experience in order to focus on the most important points and to be able to strengthen and develop them when trying to sell the same experience to international clients. All the details mentioned in the list are part of a whole experience, and they make it a real one. People have to be involved in what they're living and should not be under the impression of being an annoyance to the people of the village, reservation, place they are visiting. So talking about when guests come, they don't want to seem like they are an annoyance. They want to be welcomed in. As part of this process of involvement, one of the most important factors is storytelling. Cultural, personal, or historical. This is the best way for Native people to give a meaning to what they do and to show how they live, to make people understand, and to offer a real experience through the authenticity of their legends, their events, and food. So great, that's a great addition to what Liz had just shared with us. On to, one more note from Ilaria as well. The authenticity, so thinking about this cultural tourism aspect, the authenticity or the real will to share one's experience with the visitor is seen as fundamental process to provide a formation journey, an exclusive experience able to change something in people's lives. Some small details in their perception of the world that can give them an insight into how they can enjoy and appreciate life better. Anyone, oh, this was one of my notes that I wanted to add on here. Anybody can have a boat company or guide services or a photography tour, but that Indigenous narrative, authentically shared by Indigenous people, creates an experience that Indigenous companies are the only ones who can offer. And we can use that to leverage a specialty offering in the industry and in the marketplace. It's really beautiful when I get to go to London or I get to go to IPW, these large travel trade shows, and people are so thirsty to hear our stories. And for me, I will just kind of chime in here a little bit too. Like, I love to share my stories about fishing and hunting and gathering and the places that we have on our homelands, the petroglyphs, the landmarks, the landforms, the legends, and people just love to hear it because it's something that you don't learn in a textbook, you don't learn in K through 12 education. They're not going to learn on another tour offered by anybody else besides the Native people. And if they do hear it from somebody else that's not a Native, it's not as deep. That authenticity really makes a difference. Okay. And I hope you guys are excited about that as I am, because I see it every single time I get to interact with folks in the marketplace. That authenticity sets our destinations apart, hands down. People will choose that authenticity over just another tour every single time. Okay, so let's get into the evaluation. Like I said, it's a front and back form here, but we've broken it down into the different aspects so we can really get into them. And we may need to whiz through some of this just because we're a little bit behind on schedule, but I think some we can kind of glean over, like this first slide, looking at cleanliness and accessibility. And so, of course, cleanliness on the evaluation, the ratings are shown on the top. 1, cleanliness is not provided, or it's minimal, average, above average, and excellent. And so something I've seen companies do is to just tie that into their tour guides' everyday operations. When you get there, you're going to pick up the trash. Tourists come and go, wind blows things in, whatever it may be, maybe sharing a spot with somebody else. That cleanliness really does make a difference for folks in their engagement at your site, in their perspective of you, your culture, your homelands, your community. The next one is accessibility. So the ease of access for all visitors, considering physical accessibility and accommodation for various needs. So I can say I was on a tour once with some folks and there was somebody who was blind and it was a rafting tour. And the whole time, all I could think was, the experience of this gentleman on this tour is so different from what I'm experiencing, but they were still able to offer it by providing the same safety measures, maybe asking and offering maybe different seating arrangements. This gentleman, he was elderly even, and he was like, I want to sit on the edge of the raft. I'm going all in. And, he got to experience this beautiful place, no matter what his different needs were, and accommodations were offered, and they were able to do what they could to make sure that everybody was able to engage. So something to think about maybe it's not something you can offer. You know, if you're you know, there's just so many things to think about. But in the industry, I will say accessibility is something that is being brought up as really important. And if you're not able to offer something, that's okay for now. You know, think of ways that you can offer things or accommodate folks. So again, there's no standard that we're setting for you. It's just something to have on your radar. And if you are able to offer something for folks of different needs, that's really great to promote in your marketing strategy. Okay. The next aspect is cultural sensitivity, and this one is a big one that we definitely want to spend some time on. How well the destination showcases and respects Indigenous culture, traditions, and heritage. And so a lot of us can probably already start to think about your destination and your experience, the aspect of cultural sensitivity. And it's not just you as maybe the owner or you as a manager or you as the marketing person, but your whole team needs to be on board with all of these aspects. You know, it's really a team effort, and every single person on your team is a representative to visitors. And so it's really something to think about, having cross company trainings to make sure everybody's on the same page with this. Liz, I'm going to kick it over to you if you want to talk a little bit about this aspect.
I think this goes back to the education piece right now that a lot of journalists are interested in, and keep in mind when speaking to a journalist is really the gateway to the general public, right? We want them to tell your stories, talk about your business, talk about your offerings, with an amplified audience. And a lot of these, because you don't pay a journalist, most of them, to attend your experience and experience everything that's happening in your business, it's a third party review of what you have going on. So for example, if Sierra Green is a top journalist with the USA Today and everyone respects what she puts into the publication and her travel experiences and things like that, that's a third party endorsement, and she's going to be honest because you're not paying her. So if she has a great experience, she's going to talk about the great experience. If she doesn't, she's going to talk about that as well. And so I think it's really important to remember that there's opportunity through the education piece. So as I mentioned, I've been with AIANTA, a boomerang back, but most of last year I was with AIANTA, and really communicating with a lot of national media and maybe some media who previously talked about AIANTA years ago, and now they're wanting to cover AIANTA again, and all these great opportunities that AIANTA has. They really want to make sure, and this is through communication that we've had, that when they go to visit or even speak with Sherry, or they go to visit a different Native homeland across the US or a different Indigenous experience, they want to make sure that they're educating their readers on the cultural sensitivity to ABC elements within that experience. And so for a lot of journalists, it kind of cripples them a little bit to maybe want to stay away, or maybe they haven't been greeted with the right marketing PR person to really educate them along the way. So I think that's a really great advantage to a lot of businesses and experiences across our Native nations and communities right now, is because there is that hunger for education. And so I mentioned a little bit ago about the cultural protocols that AIANTA put together as a top 15 list to, really highlight something that was happening in the media, but also to kick off the year. And it's really created opportunities to showcase what makes your particular culture, your particular experience, something unique. So one of the things that media have shared as well, just through their own travels, is that not every experience is the same, as we know, but there's some regions of the country that are a little bit more open to sharing and educating, and there's some that are not. And so I think that as you're putting together your visitor ready experience, that you're really thinking about those pieces. And going back to what Sierra said, it starts at the top and it goes all the way through everyone that's in your ecosystem of your business and your experience. It's important that everyone's singing from the same hymnal, if you will, and that everyone has the right messaging in place.
Great, thank you, Liz. And some comments from Ilaria on this aspect. She said, I would have several examples to share, but the first one I remember is when I visited the People Center in Flathead Reservation, Montana. Native people here have organized a very good display of their history, traditions, and habits, so the visitors are completely involved in this world and through the visit of the center and walking in the nature and visit to the dam. I could perfectly understand not only all the cultural issues, but also the steps leading the nation to buy out the dam from the government and get involved in the process. So, and then in these pictures here, we have this beautiful display from Hawaii. And on the other hand, we have a hike that we did in Palm Springs with a ranger who was sharing different plants along the hike, different a tiny little hummingbird nest along the hike, and then was able to talk about the cultural significance of hummingbirds. I mean, very small touches like that magnify the culture exponentially to guests and visitors. Along the hike as well, we were shown grinding stones and beautiful waterfalls, talking about the watershed of that system and the importance of water. I mean, there's so much, especially with outdoor experiences, that you can tie into the cultural aspects of the place that you're promoting. Okay, and I hope this is giving you all some ideas about how you can continue to amplify and elevate your story from your destination through your guides or through your standalone exhibits. The next one is customer service and visitor experience. For customer service, in every single FAM evaluation I have done with tour operators, like I said, we did one in Palm Springs in the Coachella Valley. We did one up in Alaska, in Southeast Alaska. And in both of those FAMs that I participated in, the number one thing that is of the utmost importance is customer service. And the level of hospitality and cultural awareness displayed by staff members at the destination cannot be emphasized enough. And so that's something, again, it goes across the board with your team, the customer service, welcoming folks in your language, pointing them to the needs that they may have, water, restrooms, trash bins, in a friendly way, right? All this customer service. And I was talking with somebody the other day and I said, you know, I went into this place and when so-and-so works, it's one type of way, but when another person works, it's a different experience. And the person I was talking to, they said, well, person A, who it's a great experience with, they have a 4-year degree in hospitality. The other person is straight out of high school and has probably had no training in customer service. And I said, okay, I never thought about that because personally myself, I've never worked in hospitality until working with AIANTA. And I never had that training, but I guess it's just something I've inherently picked up through leadership skills. But that's something to think about with the folks who you hire onto your team is what kind of training have they provided? What are your expectations and how to find that medium and get everybody, again, on the same page with the standards of your company. I will just share a couple things with Ilaria's notes here. Hospitality is part of the friendly behavior that anyone would expect to find. People must feel comfortable and welcome, not because they bring money, but because it must be your will to host them, to share your culture with them. She says, I can think, for example, of a great experience I had in Zuni Pueblo, New Mexico. When I got there with a friend of mine, we would like to visit the museum, but it was closed. My friend Fernando called the people in charge on the phone, and they came on purpose just to open and let me in. And so that, I mean, that level of hospitality and visitor experience is above and beyond, you know, what it's closed. Oh, I can move on. Fernando, as a beautiful host, said, wait, let's find a way to get Ilaria in. She's traveled halfway across the world to come and see this museum. Let's find a way. That excellent customer service is something Ilaria still remembers. And if I remember right, Ilaria, this was like maybe a decade ago or more. And so that experience, you know, continues to resonate as one of her excellent levels of customer service and visitor experience.
Sarah, can I say
Liz?
Yeah, I was going to say, I keep hammering on education, but it is a huge piece right now, not just right now, but many for a long time it's been a big area of opportunity, but especially right now because media are so focused on it. I think that there's also an opportunity to educate along the way. So you might have a visitor who comes in, maybe says the wrong thing, or you know, they're not adhering to some of the protocols. Honestly, maybe they don't know. And so I think that there's a way, instead of just allowing, let me rephrase, allowing it to happen, or you know, feeling a certain way, there is an opportunity to educate in that moment, in a kind, hospitable way. But a lot of those folks that are attending or experiencing your museums or your different businesses and these cultural experiences, they want to know. They're there because they want to experience something that's very authentic. And so education along the way is not a bad thing. So if there's a way perhaps to build it into your curriculum or build it into your tour experience, maybe at the top of the tour, just kind of lay out a few cultural guidelines or protocols, or how you want travelers and guests to act or interact with some of the experiences that you have. There's no harm in really setting the tone and setting those guidelines so that guests know. Because again, the folks that are attending you know, your different experiences and businesses, they're there because they want to learn. And so I think that just baking that into your experience somehow is something that they will appreciate. And of course, you'll be happy that you did, so that everyone is on the same page with what you expect in your particular experience.
Yeah, that is a great insight as well. And I think as you can see in the picture here, you know, having that visitor experience amplified as well. Like, what is it you truly want the visitor to leave with? And sometimes we might get in the monotony of doing business. You know, some of the tour guides have maybe done 100 tours this season, and maybe by the end they kind of forget, like, why am I doing this? And so having those check-in moments with your tour guides, with yourself as a business owner or manager or wherever you may be in the team, thinking about that visitor experience. And I will say, there's one company that I talked to, and they said, yeah, we send in kind of like a secret shopper a couple times a season. And it's, you know, one of our friends who doesn't live here, they're coming. And so we give them a comp tour and we say, hey, just let us know, you know, what you saw, what you felt, because we don't know. We get lost in kind of the bustle of the business and we forget what it is our visitors are experiencing. Liz?
I was going to say, along those lines, and I'm sure everyone has this in place. If not, Sierra's mentioned it today, but having kind of the checks and balances of maybe there's a survey afterwards or a feedback opportunity. But I think that it's important also to be nimble, to pivot. So if you have an experience as part of a package or whatever it is, and it's a great experience and it's something really important to you, awesome. But what you'll hear along the way when you ask for feedback is, maybe there's something that travelers have experienced on your tour that wasn't really a full-on experience. Maybe it was just a line that somebody says, one of your tour guides in your opportunities, that could turn into its own unique draw for folks because they're very interested in that. So I think being receptive to feedback and hearing what different travelers are interested in could help you continuously evolve some of the opportunities and experiences that you offer for travelers.
Yeah, great. I'm enjoying this. I'm hoping you all are getting some ideas on how to look at your businesses again. After this webinar, I will just say we'll send out a blank PDF of the evaluation form. So it's something you can check out, you can print, you can work with, you can adapt as you need for your destination or experience. But we will be sending that PDF out to all registrants of the webinar. The next one is your experience bookable by the general public, including all the options that you present? If you go to a travel trade show and you're saying, we offer this and we offer that, and then people can't book it, that's a big turnoff for folks. And I'll get to that in a minute. And then also language. Indigenous language is shared throughout the destination or experience. And so one of the things that a company I worked with recently, I said, you know, you all are able to introduce yourself in your language, people would love to hear that and for you to break down some of the aspects that you share. And so even when I introduce myself, whether it be at a conference or at a presentation, aside from this one, which I didn't do, I did when I was muted. But I even said Tatsmewi, good morning, you know, in my own language. People would love to learn how to say good morning or good day or hello or see you next time in your language. Absolutely helps them understand just a little bit more about the culture and really feel like they're immersed in it. So going back to the bookable piece, let me just double check here on Ilaria's section. I guess the bookable is pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to talk about the language piece. So I just gave a little example, but from Ilaria's perspective, she said the issue of language is maybe the most difficult one to confront. So this is talking about like some of the language barriers maybe, but some solutions could be found. For example, some short language lessons could be offered, teaching the traveler how to pronounce the names of different tools or plants or animals or members of the family, trying to give them an idea of your world's perspective. Wherever I've been visiting villages and reservations, I've been told about native language and words to call things, but unfortunately, there's no way to jot them down, and as soon as I come home, I had already forgotten them. That's why I think the issue of language could be a greater opportunity to share something important by organizing a small lesson or by selling books dedicated to how to learn native languages. And I know in all of our communities, language revitalization, at least for our community, I guess I should speak to, is such a big topic. And one of the tour guides for one of our local companies, actually Statia's company who's pictured here, he has a TikTok and he does a daily word of the day, and he introduces himself and the date, and it's all in language. And TikTok is such a massive platform to be sharing language on, and I think that's something that when he does tours, he shares with the visitors. You know, follow me on TikTok to get a Nez Perce language word of the day. And so just small opportunities like that. Of course, there's beautiful books out there with language in it. I've seen out in Cherokee country, they have like Dr. Seuss books written in Cherokee language. And it's so cool to see. And that's what they use in the schools to teach language as well. So those are great ideas, Ilaria. Liz, anything to add on the language piece?
Yeah, the language piece, and then also I know later in the deck, Sierra, you have a cultural storytelling piece as well. But I think the bookable piece, if I could go back to that for just a brief second, and working with national media and freelance media who are wanting to experience your destinations and really focus and put a spotlight on your opportunities and experiences for the general public to experience. The biggest thing is they always ask us, is this bookable? Is this something that the general public can book? And I don't think there's any harm in having opportunities that maybe aren't hugely widely available to everyone. That's obviously very niche marketing and PR for that. But I think having the bookable piece is super important. The language piece, one thing I will say is we're talking about authentic experiences and really, you know, kind of a peek behind the curtain, if you will, to maybe something that you've never really thought to share as part of your tour experiences. But I also obviously want to highlight that it's very important to stay true to what you feel comfortable sharing. Sometimes it's maybe connecting. You have a restaurant on site and a wonderful chef, and the average person's going to say, well, how does you know, your agritourism, does that play a role into the cuisine and the hospitality elements of food and beverage and things like that? So I think that perhaps having someone who hasn't experienced your experience attend and kind of give you that review that Sierra was talking about, kind of the secret shopper, could prompt some questions that might make you look at your experience in a full totality to see, what are we missing? What are we unintentionally not sharing that could be something that's enticing for folks to want to come experience our destination and product.
Yeah, great. And I know we've talked about this in previous webinars, like how much do we share and what's appropriate to share. what's sacred, secret, commonly known, and widely shared. Those are some of the different categories and what it is that you're sharing on your tours. Ilaria did mention in the chat, if I remember the book in Alaska, and I don't, but I don't remember the book specifically, but I remember the context and the content of the book. It was how to learn the native language, how to say things. And then there was a dictionary as well that was provided. And so these are things that you can sell in your gift shop. You know, these are things that you can supplement your destination and experience with some of these educational tools to help people take home and continue to learn the language beyond their visit. And I know we're about halfway through the slides and we are getting close on time, so I do want to just launch another poll. And this one's just asking you, have you ever evaluated your destination or experience formally? And so go ahead and think about that. Have we had anybody actually evaluate our experience or destination? Okay, I see some answers coming in. And again, this is a really great opportunity, I think, for all of us, especially, you know, we're a little bit in the off season or the slower season. So it's a good time to have somebody get lined up for when you do kick off maybe early season and say, hey, let's tweak this a little bit. Let's tweak that. From this webinar, we learned that this is really important. Let's implement those and start to plan those into what we're doing. Okay.
I would say, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say with your question that you just pulled everybody on and getting ready for you know, making everything visitor ready, also think about your messaging, messaging points, top messaging points for each area of your experience, but then also how you're going to market it and your PR, your media too, because that's an important piece of your strategy before you just launch, is to really figure out how you're going to incorporate public awareness into your experience.
Yeah, great. That is absolutely important as well. Making sure your customers, the market, knows what it is that you're offering. Like I said, that accessibility piece. I guarantee if you're able to offer or promote that, that will bring in a new crowd. If you're able to, and we'll get to this as well, but hitting on the language piece, even having something in your language on your promo, people are going to be like, wow, this is an authentic destination. And then also, yeah, that marketing piece is so important. We have a couple webinars on that previously. That's something I'm really passionate about, making sure folks are up to par on as well. And so at AIANTA, again, we want to make sure we're supporting you in those ways. So if you have questions about how do I market to the international industry, we have some answers for you. So reach out for sure. I'm going to keep working through the PowerPoint. I do know, and I will say, we probably will go over time. If you're able to stay on, I think that would be great. If not, you can catch the recording. So I know that we're coming up on time, but I do want to just keep pressing through because I think this is really valuable to how you can all self-evaluate your destination. The next one is transportation. So the reliability and comfort of transportation options provided during the tour, and then the timing of the tour. So really not just your tour specifically, but if you're part of a larger itinerary, and that goes into transportation as well. So when we were up in Alaska, we were taking boats from Ketchikan to Metlakatla and Kasan. So these are, one, we were riding boats, and this was something we had to be on time for, but they had to estimate how long was the boat ride going to be so we could know how long our tour was going to be, so we can make sure we got back to the boat on time, to get back to the dock on time, to get back to everything was about timing and everything was about transportation. So we really had to think about that. I know some other tours have boats, some have trucks, some have vans, some have to go over really rough terrain. If it's muddy, what is that going to do to your transportation? So just really thinking about the right reliability of your transportation and the timing, and making sure everything is aligned, no matter if hiccups come, if weather comes, how are you going to be able to adjust your schedule? I did just talk to the company we worked with out of Alaska, Allen Marine. They were phenomenal to work with. These beautiful chartered boats all to ourselves to take us to these destinations. And they said, oh yeah, you can book this way for Metlakatla, you can book this way with Kasan. And they gave me all the stipulations on, you know, if weather's this way, this is what we're going to do. If weather's that way, this is some of the other options and things to look out for ahead of time. So really transparency is key, especially in working with the international industry. Some of them have international laws protecting their visitors to the US. And if you don't have those stipulations up front, it can be really detrimental to your business within the international marketplace. So Liz, if you want to chat about this for a second, I'll pull up some of Ilaria's comments as well.
Yeah, I think, again, I keep going to the education piece, but also think about what makes you and your experiences unique, right? Everyone has a different story to tell, but really trying to, again, zoom out and look at the totality of what you have to offer. So maybe even down to the transportation, maybe you have a very unique way and things that go into your transportation process as part of your experience that are very different than maybe neighboring areas or just general experiences across Native nations and communities. I think it's important to really think about what makes you and your experiences very unique and authentic, and really trying to peel back those layers to unravel the thread, if you will, to find a storytelling element in every area of your business.
Yeah, and some of Ilaria's notes, timing is important to be able to respect all the scheduled visits. Remember, some folks are coming all the way across the world and they have multiple tours lined up for the day for themselves. So there must be a minimum of tolerance. You cannot make a strict schedule without planning for some flexibility, right? So, and then transportation must be well organized. Drivers need to know where they're going, what they're driving through, safe conditions, and maybe also telling people what they're observing during the transfer would be of the utmost importance in order for them to be ready on what to expect even before the transport, on things that they can look out for, because sometimes hearing during the transport may be difficult. And so I know, like on the boats with Allen Marine, they had binoculars for us. They said, you know, on the trip today, here's all the safety brief, but also we have binoculars and we're going to look out for these animals, and we'll be sure to point them out, stop the boat, you know, circle around as best we can. For safety reasons, we can only get this close to the whales, so on and so forth. So giving us that up front really made us all excited and our eyes keen to watch the landscape. One, because it's kind of like not necessarily a competition who could spot the whale first, but it's like, I saw the whale first type of thing. It's exciting, and it adds excitement to the experience when people are engaged in pointing out some of the things that you can see along the way. Again, plants are really important, other animals you may see. And then maybe it's just something you're passing by, like a landform, and say, as we go down the road, you'll see on this side, there's this cliff and it's called this, and here's the story related to it. So you're not stopping on the highway. Things like that can really make a difference in the experience. Cultural narratives, we did hit on this a bit, but the effectiveness of presenting cultural narratives and historical significance at each destination, and then informative materials, the availability of brochures, pamphlets, or informational materials. So both of those are really great, especially if I'm traveling and I'm hitting like 3 or 4 different places a day. At the end of the day, I want to have one of the brochures so I can look back and be like, oh yeah, this is what we went to. I like to keep a travel journal so I can pull some information from that brochure. This is what this canyon was called. This is what this river was that we were on. This is the correct spelling of the people and their language. So those are really helpful. And some of Ilaria's notes on this slide says, along with narration, the availability of some printed materials would be very useful for further information, as brochures with websites and books, references, or photographic books to enjoy views and ceremonies, or books dedicated to the language, or little booklets with a summary of the most important details of the history and culture. And so, you know, that's something, especially with the language, if you can get something in Italian, right? We've talked about that, Ilaria. If we get something in Italian from your site, and you're able to promote that at a travel trade show, saying we have Italian translated materials at our tours, that is really going to set you apart from some of the competition, but also really bring in a whole new demographic to your destination. Ilaria, if there's additional notes you want to add, you can add that into the chat, and I'll give Liz a moment to chat on this as well.
Yeah, I view this from the marketing and earned media perspective. The informative materials, so as you're in the visitor ready, we're ready to launch phase, as you're building your PR, marketing, strategic communications plan, ensure that you have those informative materials, the brochures, pamphlets, your media boilerplate, any fact sheets, things like that, all housed in one digital space as well, because in the event that you get a quick media request and someone wants to come from the media wants to come experience your tours, your opportunities, or they just want to cover and create a story on it. Hopefully they want to visit, but in the absence of visit, because not everybody has the resources to be able to travel, they have everything they need in one digital location so that they can correctly communicate your opportunities and your experiences.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And that's, you know, from a marketing standpoint, it's really something to me because I have no background in marketing. I am learning a lot along the way. I'm really appreciative of people like Liz and others in the international industry who are teaching me a lot about marketing. And I spoke to a company the other day and they say, oh yeah, we have a marketing agency that we contract to. And as we were talking, I was thinking, you know, I'm really appreciative that you have somebody working on your marketing. That's absolutely necessary. And marketing in the international industry and the tourism and travel industry has very different nuances that I think would really benefit you to be aware of. And so there's some opportunities that we have at AIANTA to help folks understand there's marketing and then there's travel and tourism marketing. And some of the things that Liz just shared, you know, are new to me, new things that I'm still learning. So if you have a marketing agent that you're working with, maybe ask them, or if you're looking for one, ask them what's their experience working in the travel trade industry, because it is a little bit different and there's different opportunities for you to think about and different ways of doing it. The next one, these ones really speak for themselves, but preparedness for unexpected events. How well are you in handling unexpected events during the tour, whether it be a medical emergency of somebody on your tour, whether it be the crazy weather storm that Liz is enduring right now as we speak, whether it be the ice storm that we had come through, the foot of snow that we got, and now every single road in our town is full of ice. What are we going to do if tourists come? Do we have contingency plans in place? So I won't belabor that one, but that one is absolutely necessary to have in your back pocket. Communication. This one, I cannot emphasize enough. This goes right up there with customer service. Communication, how well communication channels operate in case of unforeseen circumstances, but also when a visitor comes all the way from Italy, Ilaria, and they cannot get a hold of the tour operator to tell them, hey, we're going to have to switch days. Is there an opportunity for us to get on the next day? Our flight was delayed in New York. Now we can't get to Idaho. What are we going to do? So, and if they don't have a response and they've traveled all this way and they can't get somebody to respond, that is detrimental to your business. That kind of customer service or lack thereof communication will reach throughout the industry, and people will not be able to book you for not being able to communicate. So absolutely need to have somebody designated to your communication channels throughout the season, especially, but also through the off season. You know, I think setting a timeline for yourself, or maybe a requirement for yourself within 48 hours, you need to be able to respond to somebody. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's understandable. Like, you're not going to respond for a couple hours. I know some of the tour operators on our fam were like busily on the phone as we're going through tours because they were having like a Mayday red alert issue that they absolutely had to address. And that's understandable. And to me, that just attested to their level of customer service. So, like, I am doing this right now, but I have to step aside and tend to my customers' needs. And that's understandable. For all of our members, you know, it's really important. Again, this is you representing your company. And sometimes you are the only native that people will meet. And so it's really a representation of all of us. And so just continue to, you know, hone in and tighten up those communication channels that we have and standards that you have for your community. The next one, internet connectivity and mobile network connectivity. of course, when we're going into a canyon, like we're not going to expect to have service and sit back, relax, enjoy the tour. And this one really more speaks to places like accommodations, or if you're planning a longer itinerary, let folks know like at lunch, we're going to stop at this place and there will be Wi-Fi available. Just communicating what kind of connectivity there is important. Again, if it's just a 3-hour tour that folks are going to be on, let them know ahead of time. We're sorry for the inconvenience or the precious time that you'll be able to enjoy without service. On my case, that's usually, I'm like, yes, there's no service. What a beautiful thing for us to enjoy this time with the land and the people that are here. So really transparency on that is the number one key. If you're providing overnight accommodations, that's something to make sure folks know that they have Wi-Fi or service, or you can list the providers that do have service in that area. I'll say like one company we're working with has a Hogan stay. And I'm like, oh shoot, I wonder if they have like power to charge this person's devices. Is that something that's available? If not, we can ask the other companies we're working with if we could charge a device while we're on tour in their facility that does have charging. So even just electricity is one thing, but Wi-Fi connection. If you're working with reporters, they're going to need to check their emails and things like that. So, and if not, again, transparency up ahead is everything. So, Liz, if there's anything you want to chat on that for a moment.
No, I think that's great. One thing when you are welcoming, and this is where it really does benefit, going back to what Sarah said, to have a PR or a marketing person work with you on building these experiences, because for that's something where, the marketing PR person will set expectations with the journalist in that element. But one thing in working with journalists across the country on different types of FAM experiences is they are still on deadlines. They are still running different stories. However, when you take the time to invite them to experience your tour and really be in your experience, they also know to push things to the side because they're there to experience what you have to offer. So I think the transparency piece is just big, but also baking in a little bit of downtime so they can rest, because as you know, if you cram everything into a 2-day experience, it can be a lot. And you want to make sure that they're not completely exhausted and things like that they're fresh and telling the right stories. But just being transparent about the entire process, especially for media, is something that your publicist can do.
Great. And I know some of the notes from Amaria kind of just relate to her clients and, at night having the availability. If these folks are with you for the day, well, they need to start, checking their bookings for tomorrow, making sure their maps are all in line, things like that. If there was anything that changed, they need to be able to access some sort of mobile network to make sure they're prepared for the next day, or maybe it's 2 days out where they're getting notifications about a landslide and now the highway this is closed and you need to take a different route. I mean, there's so many things. For better or worse, we have the ability to be so connected, and some of those things just need to be communicated ahead of time. Here's some touch points where you'll be able to connect mobily. We did talk about feedback collection. So of course, I'm not sure if how many of you have looked at your Google reviews, your TripAdvisor, your Yelp, whatever it may be, ways that you're getting feedback collection process from your participants, from your guests. Is it something that you have a QR code at the end of your tour that say, please fill out a Google review for us. Show us you filled out the review and you can pick up a sticker from the gift shop or something like that. Some sort of incentive. Maybe it's a email you send out that has a link to your TripAdvisor. We appreciated having you on our trip. Please take a moment to fill out the TripAdvisor review. This helps us continue to provide great service for future guests. And then this is key, make the adjustments that are coming through on your reviews, and maybe have somebody delegated once a week to go back and respond to reviews, whether it be positive or negative reviews, and be able to craft messages that are even taking bad reviews and making it into something positive. Liz?
Yeah, I was going to highlight that, definitely coming from the food service industry. Google reviews are can be the most rewarding thing for your business and the most damaging thing for your business. And then you've got to get into crisis communications, and that's just not fun. But to Sierra's point, people are giving you feedback. View the feedback as a gift, but it's also an opportunity to correct things and get it right. So as a consumer myself, I always Google a new restaurant, a new tour, whatever it is, to see what everyone else is saying. And then I take it, with a grain of salt based off of my own experiences. But the ones that I always view are the ones who really truly care about their businesses, are the ones that have the owner under a masked name come in and reply to each and every review and try to make it right. Those are the ones that, for me as a consumer, I say yes, they care about their business, they want to get it right, and those are the things that are going to help you turn a negative into a positive.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I know one of the companies that's a great AIANTA member, they had this basically hack of bad reviews coming in from a company overseas, or not a company, but a country overseas. Like there were multiple bad reviews, I mean, hundreds within an hour, and then it just amplified. So they had to work with Google. And if you're not watching your reviews, it will plummet your reviews and you won't even be aware of it. So really, it's important to keep track of those reviews. Again, delegate somebody to go back and leave comments. Delegate somebody on your team to reach out to guests who have come and make sure they're filling out the review. And those really do, I mean, I'm a traveler and I'm always looking at reviews, like maybe not go with that snorkeling company. Maybe I want to go with this snorkeling company or whatever it may be. So just think about that. And then some of Ilaria's notes here, it's talking about live. How can you get feedback live while you're giving a tour? And so having your guides think about this. The tour leader should always be attentive to people's reactions to events and places visited, and should take note of the level of appreciation of a certain detail in order to make the experience better next time. For instance, take a look at people's reactions when you show them some particular detail or what you display, whether it be a ceremony or a plant, and try to involve them as much as possible with dances and songs. So when we were in Alaska, it was beautiful. Every longhouse and clan house we went to, they invited us to come out and dance. And that was such a good feeling. And, that's truly an immersive experience. And being able to see like those who are standing back, maybe there's a reason why, maybe it's their cultural reason why they're not joining in the dance, but also just being able to see the joy of people's faces and getting to do that and say, we got to keep inviting people to dance with us. We got to keep honoring veterans at the beginning of our tour because they, that unifies us as a group rather than sets us apart. So just finding those beautiful points along a tour. Maybe it's one thing you try one time and it's like, oh my gosh, everybody loved that. Let's keep doing that. So that feedback doesn't always need to be like a digital Google, Yelp, or TripAdvisor. It can be a firsthand experience from your guides. Okay, the next one, opportunities for photography and restrictions on photography. So both of these, it's really important, and this is some of Ilaria's notes as well. Visitors must be informed in advance about what they can and cannot take pictures of or videos of, and when they have to ask permission for it. They must be aware of the cultural differences and habits, so they will never find themselves in a position where they're offending or being hurtful to anybody. So again, Liz had mentioned, like, these folks are coming, they want to learn, help them understand, what's appropriate and what's not. When visiting a museum or a people center, be attentive to underline the details you think are the most important of your history and culture, and also draw attention on the ones who are distracted in order for them to understand that they have to show respect, right? So that's really important as well. You can also jot down a list of rules to be respected, such as always ask before taking a picture, like at powwows and dancers, is it okay if I take your picture? Or, checking with them afterwards, or who's the artist who created this? That's really important as well. Or if it's not allowed to take a picture of this or that. And so I posted this picture on this page because I went to Page and one of the tours, Dixie's Lower Antelope Canyon. They don't allow you to take pictures when you're going up and down the ladders for safety reasons, of course. Like after traversing up and down these, I thought, well, yeah, there's no way I would want to stop and fumble around with my phone. Some of the canyon cracks are deep. You drop it, you're not getting it back. So for everybody's safety, one, you're not going to drop anything on anybody else. You're not going to slip and fall, miss a step. You know, it's really a safety reason that they don't want you stopping on these ladders that are rather steep. But it's a beautiful experience. So it's kind of like, I don't really want to be on my phone anyways. I want to just be enjoying this experience. So you can frame it in different ways that helps a guest understand. Liz?
Sorry, my mute button. I think to bring all this together, the biggest takeaway I would say, like at the top of the call, was you get one opportunity to make a first impression. And so whether that is a new operator you're working with, or a new journalist that's coming to visit, an influencer. I know there's a stigma with influencers, but they have such a third-party reach to the public if you find the right one and do the right research, that they could make or break your experience too. But you get that one time to make a first impression. And if something goes wrong on the tour, or you think something's kind of slipping, you can also course correct. And so I think it all goes back to, as well, making sure everyone's reviewing the same talking points, that they're getting the same onboarding and training, everyone that's part of your experience, so that they know that these are your expectations for how to run the experience.
Yeah, great. And just talking about influencers for a second, and media, and even tour operators, we work closely with Brand USA, and they're able to kind of help us verify folks' status, because you might have somebody call and be like, hey, I'm media, can I get a comp tour? I would like to do this and this and this. And it's like, are these people actually media? I've never heard of this publication. Like, who are they? So for our members' protection, like, we're able to work with Brand USA and say, hey, let us go back to Brand USA and see, are these verified media outlets that we can ensure you that they are going to give you some sort of promotional and marketing value for comping their tour. And really, that's a whole other conversation that I know we've covered in another webinar. But the value of marketing from influencers and media who come aboard, and tour operators as well. I know Laria and I have chatted before, and she said, you know, the best way for me to be able to sell a destination is to go there myself, because then I can explicitly describe the beauty and the interactions and all the things that I can get our clients excited about. So that firsthand experience is unbeatable. A couple more things here. Souvenir options, the variety and appropriateness of souvenir options, and alignment with cultural considerations. So maybe this is something not relevant to you. You're like, we don't have a gift shop, we're not selling anything besides our tour, or we don't have a gift shop, we're focusing on food, you know, a food culinary experience. We're not selling anything on top of that. Maybe this isn't relevant to you, but if it is relevant to you, really think about the appropriateness of the souvenir options you're providing and the alignment with the cultural and ethical considerations. I love some gift shops that can help you really understand the culture. So I was in a gift shop, and this lady opened a mystery bag that she had bought, and it was this beautiful necklace that had I believe it was an elk tooth, or it was part of a deer antler. And she thought, oh, this is pretty. And then seeing somebody explain the significance of the deer antler in the object of using it as a tool, and using it as this and this and this and status, and explaining the cultural significance. Now it's not just a beautiful necklace to her. Now it's like this thing that really has value and gives status as somebody who's wearing this antler necklace. So it really helped her understand the significance of the gift that she had bought from the gift shop. Okay. Is there anything you guys would like to add? I can mention some of Ilaria's notes here. Liz, is there anything you want to add on this?
No, I think that this, I mean, I honestly, I think this one kind of speaks for itself. But just the different offerings, and I would just, one thing, you know, everyone's at different points in their tourism journey. I should say every destination is different in terms of resources and opportunities and things like that. So I would just if you focus on making it the most authentic, I know authentic is a buzzword, but the most authentic experience that you possibly can within the parameters of what you have to offer, I think that folks are going to know that and understand it. So you don't have to have the ritziest gift shop or, the ritziest cultural center and things like that. I think if you make the experience authentic and something memorable, people are going to remember it, and your messaging is going to amplify on its own.
Yeah, great. I mean, decals are such a simple thing that you can get with your company's logo or a picture of a landscape from the tour that you were on. I mean, decals are great. Everybody loves them. I got them all over my water bottles and coffee mugs and everything like that. They're great gifts. That's a good starting point for companies. One of the things Ilaria said, personally, I remember when visiting Taos Pueblo, there was a girl who worked silver and she showed me some really beautiful jewelry that I would have really liked to buy a bracelet. I'm still thinking about that bracelet and how beautiful it was, not only because it was beautiful and handmade, but also because she told me the story of how she made it and how she had the idea to make it. Unfortunately, the price was too high for me, so maybe also the detailed price must be taken into consideration, because I can assure you that during my visit around the reservations and pueblos, I would have bought many handmade things, but sometimes I could not afford all of them. So maybe the different level of purchasing power is also an issue. Europeans do not have the same purchasing power Americans have. So making sure, I know there's a gift shop that offers a variety of price points. There's some really world-renowned artists that are being sold in this gift shop. And then there's some, first timers or starters out who, have, it's maybe not museum collection quality, but they're still beautiful pieces of art that have a lower price point for folks who are just looking for something at their available price point. Okay. And this is the last one here. So implementation of eco-friendly practices and aspects to wellness. And this is something that's really come through in working with some of the media folks and influencers. They want to go to destinations that have this very specific status of being eco-friendly or that addresses wellness. And, I put this picture here because maybe you have to fly and catch a boat and all sorts of not eco-friendly practices to get to the destination. But at the destination, as a company, you can share, the cultural significance that align with eco-friendly practices and the cultural significance of wellness, whether that be mental, physical, and spiritual wellness of people and the foods that you eat, and saying a blessing. Maybe it's not including people in that, but saying, in the morning, we do this as part of our way to connect to the land. Small things like that go a long way in helping people understand perspectives of Indigenous communities and our belief systems, our inherent connection to the land, and why the beautiful places that we call our homelands, we are still connected to and have been connected to for thousands of years. So again, it may not be that you have solar and wind energy everywhere. If you do, point that out. Have placards or panels that share about that. If you don't, just be able to express in ways that your culture aligns with eco consciousness and wellness. And I would just share one note from Ilaria on this. The development of an awareness and respect for the environment should be part of the education and something to be absolutely shared with anyone, because this is a point on which we're absolutely on the same page, where everyone and all of us should do everything possible to implement a contribution to the improvement of the world we live in. Wellness and health are probably best promoted through a direct contact with nature, which is usually the best way to let people feel good. Like strolls in the wood and observations of the flora and fauna are absolutely to be considered part of the program. And I know, Ilaria, one of the things, and in the notes I see you say, think about recycling, having a recycling bin at your site. So many tourists are coming through with their plastic water bottles. Have a recycling bin. Say, help us continue to protect our homelands. Recycle. That's one thing that we can do. But I know one thing, when we were in Alaska and we went on this beautiful hike through this beautiful rainforest with totem poles, and we got to sit on the beach for not long enough. We all wished we could have sat on that beach for hours. but just that, maybe it's having that peace and that time for people to just be, not hustling and bustling through to see anything, but just to be. And that is always something that helps people's mental health, physical health, fresh air, beautiful sounds of nature. That's something that we can all offer if we're in places in our destinations and experiences to do so. Liz, anything to add on this last slide?
No, I think one of the themes that we're seeing from media outreach with AIANTA and journalists proactively pitching us, looking for thought contributors and things like that, is the sustainability aspect of an experience. So again, something that you might be too close to that if you zoom out, you can see it, but just, you know, if you have a restaurant on property or a chef or a culinary experience, how does that translate to the land and agritourism? One of the things that a lot of journalists are interested in right now is really focusing on Indigenous astronomy experiences and night skies and things like that. So these storytelling opportunities that really might not even necessarily need dollars put into building an infrastructure around it. It's just inherent. Those are things that you can amplify and really create a total experience. But the storytelling aspect in all areas is something that feeds into the wellness and the sustainability as well for media.
Great. So that does conclude the evaluation. Like I said, it's just one sheet front and back, but there's so much in there that you can review and reflect on for your business. And again, pull in all your team to think about what aspects maybe on the ground people are experiencing things this way. Have them fill out the self-evaluation. Maybe somebody from the marketing standpoint sees things differently. You want to make sure your whole team has a cohesive approach to what it is you're promoting, what it is you're providing, and what it is that your expectations and standards are. So please do keep an eye out for that email with the PDF. It's a blank one that you can use, copy, and adapt as needed for your business. We want everybody to be successful. When one of us is successful, we're all successful in making strides to become more relevant and more representative in the international marketplace and in the domestic marketplace and in our own communities even. So please do use this as a resource to continue to elevate your business. I do want to have a couple of announcements here before we depart, and thank you all for hanging on a couple extra minutes. Half of an hour is a great dedication to your interest in this webinar. We do have some more opportunities to learn about how to elevate your business in the international marketplace. So Go International is our 2-day training. Some of you I know have attended in the past and have found it valuable. There's a list of our sessions there, some of our top-notch speakers from the industry itself, Tourism Exchange USA, International Inbound Travel Association, U.S. Commercial Services, Rocky Mountain Holiday Tours. They're a phenomenal receptive tour operator we're beginning to establish our partnership with, and then Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and many more. So with these sessions, again, it's really taking some of you from this business idea even, or business readiness, where you're just selling to locals, into getting into the international marketplace. And we'll give you some of the steps and skills and resources you need to move through the spectrum that I talked about at the beginning of this webinar. So you can go ahead and go on to our website, and I'll post the link here, possibly in the chat. So you can go on and get some more information, register. It is coming up in a couple of weeks, February 6th through the 7th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's going to be another great opportunity to learn and network with some of your colleagues. This is a really small conference because we want to be able to work hand in hand with you all in answering your questions on how do I actually implement this in my business plan. And so the experts that we have on hand can also help you work through this. There's typically around 50 attendees, so it's a great opportunity to get your questions answered, go home with action items in hand to start implementing, much like we covered in this webinar. Oops, many clicks. A couple other opportunities coming out of the visitor outreach program. If you're in the Western region, we have Go West. We have a special registration rate through AIANTA. I'll send this out in the email follow-up as well, so you can get links on that. It's a travel trade show where you sit down and have appointments with international tour operators and media. You get to pitch your product and say, how can we start doing business together? It's a great opportunity. We've seen success of our members who attended last year and the year before. IPW is one of the world's largest, or one of the US's largest travel trade shows, and it is in Los Angeles this year in May. And we have room within the AIANTA booth for folks to come in, and I think some of those who are on the call can attest that this is an opportunity to really see what the travel trade show is about. We help you develop your one sheets, make sure you're able to pitch your product within a certain confines of minutes that we have with these folks. And these give you phenomenal leads into the industry and being able to find pathways to do partnerships with those international tour operators. We also have, if you're well-versed in travel trade shows and you want to have your own booth, we have Tribal Row. Last year, there was, I believe, 7 of us all in Tribal Row together on the AIANTA booth, and then other members aligned with us, centrally located right next to Brand USA. So we were really at the hub of the whole convention, and it's a great opportunity, again, to promote your business and get into the international marketplace if you are ready for that. So if you have any other needs from the visitor outreach program, you can scan that QR code and fill out the survey, and we'll be sure to get back to you to make sure that we are fulfilling your needs as AIANTA members. So that will conclude the webinar. Any last words from you, Liz? Ilaria, feel free to type anything to wrap us up in the chat.
No other words for me. I think I spoke enough today for you guys, but I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have, or if you want to just connect. I'm very obviously passionate about PR, marketing, and communications. And thank you, Sierra and AIANTA, for this great webinar. I hope that it was very helpful for everyone.
Thank you, Liz. I see Ilaria typing a message for us all. She said, thank you, everyone, and so sorry for this technical issue. Hope to have the opportunity to talk again and see you all. So I absolutely would love to have Ilaria on for another webinar in the future. Her insights are so valuable to us and other tour operators as well. She has such a great network and relationship within the industry that she knows what others are buzzing about when they visit Native America. And so we would love to have you again, Ilaria, when we can get all the audio issues worked out for sure, because your enthusiasm is something I cannot translate into through the webinar. So Katiayo, thank you everybody, and we will be sure to send out materials in the coming days.